steps up and shows up. So congratulations.
Exactly.
You were going to say something about preservation, and so I'm voting on a candidate based on
historic preservation.
right, because the city will not recognize the original neighborhood.
Exactly.
And my friend Robin Kirby's in her grave, and I told her I would work till I'm in my grave to make sure that happens. And so, if someone will support recognizing the historic district there, they got my vote. If they don't, they don't. What say you?
I live in a historic home.
In the original town site?
I don't live in the cross streets, in the original
But you're in
downtown.
in favor of preservation? For the old neighborhood?
Yeah, I am.
Because the city won't vote to protect it.
Exactly.
So you're with me.
I'm with you.
So last time I did a podcast with a lot of candidates and whatnot, and I was asking a few different questions like the city council or the Parks and Rec has like a dog park improvement in the progress right now. They're getting the designs and they're going to get a quote. And then I guess I wanted to see from you is like if a dog park improvement came up in front of you saying it's going to cost this much money, would you be supporting like the dog park improvements?
Well, it really depends. It really depends on where that money is coming from and what that money was allocated to.
Yeah.
So one of the things that, for example, that we mentioned was the impact fee. And the impact fee collection and everything else. So it's critical for us to allocate the money to where the money belongs. One of the things that I'm part also of the Twin Falls Community Foundation. So a lot of what the Twin Falls Community Foundation has done is taking projects like this, like for example the bike park that was made. Actually, the Twin Falls Community Foundation took care of doing all the improvements, and then once all those improvements are made and done, then that gets transferred to the city. And so the city just puts a small portion of the money that it is, but then the rest of the funds are raised by the citizens and by private people and everything else that are committed to this particular cause. You know, in this example, the trail system was the same idea. So the trail system worked out the same way, where the Twin Falls Community Foundation collected the money, some of the races that were done in town, some of the 5Ks and the fundraisers and the fun runs and all that different things, collected money for that trail system. And then once that trail system improvement and the city put some of the money for the land and everything else, but then in association, then that came out to be. So I think working something out like that, I would be all in favor. Because that means that citizens are actually putting their money,
putting money into it as well too.
Yes, and so they're saying yes. By supporting it, they're actually saying yes, this mattered to us, and that's what I'm all about. Is what matters to our
people itself.
Yes.
What about like for example, like in Rock Creek itself, there's a lot of graffiti down there itself. What would you try to do to combat graffiti in the town?
You know, believe it or not, we have, and it's not just in Rock Creek. Actually, if you go below the bridge, you will see huge amounts of graffiti, even on the rock faces. Yeah. And we have, my wife and I direct this group that's called Park Run, that is a free 5K every Saturday. It's a free time, and it starts there at the visitor center. And one of the things that we have put in part of ourselves is to work erasing some of that graffiti, you know, and taking care of it. So I think the citizens can have a huge initiative, but one of the things that I thought about was having the city provide tools to groups. So rather than the city having their employees necessarily do it, but say, hey, we have these steam cleaners that will help you remove that graffiti. You can always check those out and then go out and do that as a community project. Places of employment, businesses, like for example, I work for the Elevens Bank. We wouldn't have any problem. One of the biggest things that we want to do is reinvest in our community. And so saying, hey, yeah, city, let us borrow that steam cleaner and we'll go out and tackle that.
I really like that idea. That's really cool. What is your opinion on with the current traffic the system that we have with the transit itself. Would you be for keeping that, or maybe transitioning into a bus system, or what's your kind of envision for the transportation? Because it's going to run out. The money's going to run out of 3 years,
Yes.
and then we're going to have to figure out how we're going to get like $3 million out of the city budget itself.
Well, believe it or not, yes, the money, it is a grant. It's at $3 million for 3 years, okay? But that is not the only funding that particular program has. And actually also, as being part of the Twin Falls Community Foundation, we're actually just took on TFT as one of our things to actually, so we actually are helping them raise funds, additional funds, to continue this type of service. That doesn't take away the city fund in an alternate way. I don't think a bus system is going to work for the needs of our community. One of the reasons is a lot of the people, if you look at the over 5,000 rides that TFT has done in this past month, over those 5,000, a lot of these are shut-in people that are over in their homes trying to go to other places. These are people that cannot walk to a bus stop to actually ride a bus. So this type of service is much more beneficial to them than having specific stations. The other thing is, where do we place those stations in the city?
Yes.
It is very difficult. And it's very difficult. I mean, the corridor, the Blue Lakes corridor would be a great corridor to implement something like that. But then at the same time, is the people that work in the Blue Lakes corridor are not willing to put up with the inconvenience of having to wait at a stop, at a bus stop, to ride a bus. So that might not be the solution. I think that it's gotta be some sort of mixed solution between the TFT, and I think the TFT, even though the grant expires, it can become self-sufficient. Some of the programs that they're looking at doing, for example, is advertisement on their vans, and so selling that advertisement to businesses, it actually brings in money that they can actually, help subsidize. But really, the plan can become self-sufficient. Idaho Falls has the same plan in place, and they're actually running it already for the 3 years, and their grant is already expired, but at the same time they were able to maintain the system. And so having that as a supplemental to some sort of mass transportation, I don't know if the bus system is going to be the optimal thing, but we have to have some sort of place to place and the big employers. So, but it has
I like
to be
it. I like it. That's a good plan. What about your thoughts on the transparency? Like, what do you think about, can the city be more transparent itself with what it's doing and trying to invite the community to come to be part of the decision making itself?
I think that the city has always been transparent. I think that one of the problems that we have is we don't have the same investment of the community in actually finding the information. When we were working, and I mentioned before that I worked on the last 2 comprehensive plans, and we made public fairs for the people to come over and comment what they wanted. And it's sad, really, when we have at the library, when we set up one of these particular events, and we get 20 people, to come over when on a city of over 50,000 people, and you get 20 people to come over and comment about the different things. So I think that it requires, in order to have transparency, it requires the citizens to have a little bit more commitment on the growth of their city and everything else. I mean, if you go look at the minutes, which are readily available for everything else is in there. When I was in Plan and Zoning, you could look up all the Plan and Zoning events and everything else, what was coming up, what was being brought up to the agenda, and you could come and comment on any of those things. So, and even at that, when we made decisions...
Do you have any plans on how to make it so that more people get engaged with those decisions? So how do you try to get those 20 people so that way there's more people is what I'm saying?
And I think that one of the things is we have, as a city, and this is a comment that I had before, or even when we were doing the comprehensive plans, as a city, we've been we have kept the tradition of those ways of communication in place. So we still use the TV and we still use the newspaper to advertise all these different things. And if I was to come to the Times News, for example, right now and ask them how many people in the city are really receiving the newspaper, I would guarantee you that the number of those people is minimal. I think that we need to start utilizing social media more, that the city needs to be more open to social media, and that brings all kinds of other things. But I think that there should be marketing and everything else on the city that handles all those different types of things. And so we're on, I don't know, Facebook, which I don't know, that is not really what the kids are using right now as much, but we're on Instagram, we're on different things. And so the city has a presence in there, and that will bring all the younger people, which are usually the more vocal about preserving the environment, about affordable housing, about all these issues that are facing the city, that will bring them into the know what's being done.
Yeah. Cool. I think I got it. That's great. You gave me a lot of good stuff. Thank you.
Cool.
Well, I don't know if you've ever watched any of my podcasts, but I always do like, what's your thought on the dog park? So if there's some new improvements to the dog park, would you be for it or against it? What about that? What do you think?
A new dog park?
Well, no, just to improve the dog park,
sure.
the existing one. So I take my dog all the ways to this Baxter Dog Park, and they're working on a design where they're going to improve it because it's usually very muddy.
That's the one over
by McDonald's.
On the west side of town?
Yeah, kind of near like where your guys' old workplace was at, kind of like that section of town itself. So what do you think? Would you approve the dog park improvements, or would you be like, no, it's like a low priority?
I'd be willing to listen for it, and then
Okay.
if people have good ideas and we can do it, then
Yeah.
down to improving stuff.
Yeah. What about like graffiti? What's your thought about graffiti? Because there's a lot of graffiti in Rock Creek. We're very nearby that Rock Creek Park. That usually gets all graffitied all the time. Makes it unsafe. People feel unsafe down there because they think there's a lot of homeless people down there and graffiti. So what's your thought on that?
Well, I think it's pretty safe. I go down there quite a bit with some of my clients, and we walk around, and I've never had problems. The graffiti kind of sucks because it just kind of makes things look bad.
Yeah.
So we have one graffiti wall, I believe, so maybe more of that, maybe actually putting one down in the park to like, hey, don't just spray this bridge or this rock, right here, do your art there. So maybe that would work a little bit better. I'm just trying to stay away from sticking more law enforcement down there, so
Gotcha.
just trying to make more wholesome ways.
What about, so you say about like everybody should have affordable housing.
Yeah.
How do you plan to try to implement that?
So a lot of other places in the world will get with private investors. Unfortunately, with Idaho, we can't regulate private rents because of Bill 45. So we would have to keep a property interest in all the properties we build. So we'd have to have, 51% of owning that. So the city might have to fork over some cash to subsidize that housing, get it built, and then we could rent it out or sell it or whatever we wanted to do there.
Gotcha. What about, I was also, last time around on this, I was talking about like, should there be some kind of like a concert venue system? Because we have the band shell and the commons. Do you think that's adequate enough, or do you think we need to go bigger?
I think bigger. So we look at Pocatello, they just built an awesome concert venue, and they bring in country artists all the time, and they have huge concerts. And so I would love to have one of those. Where? Who knows? There's a big empty plot of land kind of along the Canyon Trail there on the east side, kind of by Sportsman's. There's just a huge empty chunk that just sits there growing weeds. You could put a nice band shell there right on the canyon rim. I think that'd be really cool since our city's known for the canyon. We're bringing food trucks, bus people from the mall parking lot, stuff like that.
Cool.
I think that'd be a cool spot.
I guess that's about it. My main thing is they're already working on the dog park improvement itself.
Okay.
That's going to come on the agenda, and then
Cool.
City Council is going to need to approve it. That's why I kind of was trying to feel you out, and like where would you be on that itself? What about historic
What's your name?
preservation?
Pleasure meeting you. I don't care
Good
about
to meet you,
historical
too.
preservation. This is a working class man. I'm a working class guy now. I paid
Yeah.
my way through college framing houses.
Nice.
He's interested in poor people.
Yes.
That's almost as important as history and historical preservation.
Well, we got to ask him, like, what about the old buildings? What's your stance on that? Like,
yeah,
do you
but
keep them?
we'll get there. But first thing, thanks for running.
Thank you.
Appreciate it very
Yeah.
much because everybody sits on the sideline and,
Oh,
and
yeah.
so getting in the game and so terrific. Now we're preservation. We're interested in saving the old historic
Okay, yeah.
town,
Yeah,
and
well,
the city has been against us.
Okay.
And so I'm going to be campaigning for people who support historical preservation. We've
Yeah.
got 4 districts: a warehouse, the business, the park, and a neighborhood, the original neighborhood.
Yeah.
The city will not recognize the original neighborhood
Okay.
because they're
That's
afraid.
bad.
it's
Yeah,
gonna
they got all
be
those
there.
houses and people
Yeah,
living
yeah,
there.
yeah, yeah. So they're all building big apartments and they're destroying these people's neighborhood.
Yeah.
And as we speak. And so I'm about who's in the city council is going to stand up and say we want to protect this very valuable part of our community
Yeah.
in the face of the growth.
Oh yeah.
And so I'm with guys that are with me, and I'm against them who are not. Now the
Yeah.
housing thing's a part of it.
Oh, yeah.
And so, you know, you want to make affordable housing,
Mm-hmm.
and I want to save historic places
Okay.
and save history.
Yeah, and
and you. And what say you?
I think there's lots of empty chunks of land we could build housing on, so I don't think we have to tear down
Absolutely.
old neighborhoods.
That's like duh.
Yeah. And then we got to keep that part of history
And
in
you
our
know where
town.
I'm talking about? You've been down in the old neighborhood?
Yeah. I think I've seen the signs about the avenues. Is that
You know
what you're
our,
talking
you know
about?
my group, Preservation Twin Falls. We own the grain elevator.
Okay.
They wanted to tear those down, and they couldn't afford to tear them down, so they gave them to us for $10.
Okay.
Have you been down to the grain elevator?
I drive by
There's
them all
a
the
park
time.
there, and these beautiful signs there.
Yeah, that's cool.
It's very cool. And so that was a weed patch, an eyesore from hell.
Yeah.
If you remember.
Oh yeah, lots of places around here are.
Good luck to you.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, good luck in
No,
historic preservation.
I'm retired. I need no luck.
Okay.
And preservation's this: we win a few, we lose a few, but all victories are temporary
Okay.
because we can save it, and then a new city council comes along. So
It's
all
all new.
victories are temporary, but once we get the neighborhood as a historic district, then those victories are not temporary.
Yeah.
There's ongoing battles.
Yeah, never
But
ends.
we actually won one that's going to be there when you and me are in our grave,
Yeah.
and the neighbors will be thanking us for saving it from destruction.
Right on.
I think I got everything that I needed.
cool.
The only other thing was, what's your stance on strong mayor or weak mayor style? Do you know like the difference?
Because my stepdad and my mom live in Pocatello, so I go there all the time. And they have a mayor system, and we have the city planner system.
Yeah, what do you
I'm not
think we should-
entirely sure. I have to do a little more research.
Yeah, so
before I made up my
basically,
mind.
the Pocatello gets to elect the mayor, and
then they
here,
make the
and then,
choices and
well, they
decisions.
kind of run as the city manager, basically. So we could change it to that if the citizens wanted to,
Yeah.
or if the city council wanted it itself. It could be either one or the other, basically. Do you have any kind of stance on that? Yay, nay?
I think it's just, from my limited knowledge, it kind of seems like the mayor system has a bit more accountability and is a bit more directly voted for, whereas the city planner can probably get stuff done faster, but then you're putting all of your cats in one bag, or whatever the saying is,
Sure.
in the city council, so it's kind of a more of electoral thing, but so I mean, like I said, I'm not super well versed on the system. It's something I have to research a bit more.
Yeah, cool.
So-
I got it. I think I got it. You're the people's, the common man, basically.
Hopefully, yeah.
Hopefully that's what
Yeah,
you're going.
I'm
Is
constantly
there
out
anything
around
else you want
town.
to say?
I don't know, build affordable housing and good transit, and let's start from there.
What's your thought of the existing one? Because we're only going to have it for 3 years itself, and
Oh,
then
yeah.
we're going to have to figure out
How
where do
to
we get
fund
this
it.
money
Yeah.
itself, because we're currently getting it from ITD. So you're in favor of doing some kind of bus system, right?
Yeah, so, because right now, right, people use it because it's, $1 or $3 per drive.
Yeah.
So it's very convenient, very cheap for people. Lots of people can afford it, and those are the people that kind of using it more. But then once that money runs out, what does that price jump to? Does it jump to just regular Uber prices, which are very expensive? Or like, so then do we keep that system going, or do we just roll that into a new system, which I think bus lines that we could have running, on routes all around the city, hitting certain areas like CSI, shopping districts, different neighborhoods, right? We could bring people in, and then you wouldn't have to get a car, cut down on traffic, cut down on pollution, and stuff like that. So,
Cool.
yeah.
I think I got it. All right, perfect. I'm gonna go on to other people here.
Right on.
Okay, I guess the first one that I wanted to know was, I think they're in the works with doing some dog park improvement. I've been talking about a lot of dog park. I have a dog, and I always take to this Baxter Dog Park. And I think it's going to be coming up, and I think it's going to go to City Council itself to go ahead and see if they want to go forward with it and so forth. So I guess, I don't know if you have a dog or...
I do, yep. Big dog lover.
Have you ever been to the dog park?
Yep.
Or
Yeah.
sometimes it gets really muddy and really bad out
Yeah.
there, but people go out there all the time. So I
Yeah.
guess, what would your thoughts be on just the dog park itself?
On
Like improving it.
Maybe improving?
If it came on the
Yeah.
agenda to improve it, would you be
Right,
for
right.
it or against
yeah.
it?
And I will say, as a caveat, depending on the overall budget of everything, I think it's something that does help. I think dog parks do aid in the livability of the community. I think they really do. We've got a lot of people that have dogs. A lot of people are in apartments that need those dogs. I mentioned in there that I lived in Houston. They have some great dog parks down there because it is a community that does have a lot of apartments, and so they need places for them to go. So yeah, I would be very open to seeing dog parks and seeing how we can improve or add more or something in that manner.
Cool. What's your thought on how do you think the city can combat the graffiti? Because there's a lot of graffiti.
Oh, that is so tough.
Yeah.
That is really tough because you've got different people that go around and graffiti different areas. So I think it depends on where the area is. I mean, the best we can do is get our police force out there, and then there lies another problem is how do we do funding? How do we do funding when we're recognized as 51,000 people and we're really 100,000? And so, where do we get the funding to be able to increase our police force?
Gotcha. Somebody mentioned like they would be for like having the city be able to have some supplies and things like that for people that want to go clean it up themselves or so forth. Would you be for something like that too, or?
Again, depending on the budget of things, I mean that's such a tough thing because I think as a city we would love to be able to provide all of those things, and at to what cost?
Yeah.
So I think that's a fantastic idea. We'd have to look and see what that cost would be,
Cost and stuff like that.
that we're not. I mean, the thing you definitely don't want to do is start taxing, and start because then that just doesn't. That creates a whole nother issue.
What's your thought on the city's transparency itself? Do you think it could do more itself, or do you believe everybody knows what's going on with the city, or like?
Well, I think it is accessible. I don't know. So appreciate it. I don't know that. Go ahead. I think if it's accessible, and I know when I've gone to ask different questions that people have been helpful and have I don't know that they publish everything. I can't say that they do or they don't because I haven't been through all of that area yet. I think as a citizen though, I do go to a lot of the meetings and the various meetings, planning and zoning, URA, all of that. So I think the information is there if you know where to ask for it or you ask for it.
Gotcha.
It's there.
If people elect you, what would be your top priorities? Do you have any kind of top priorities that you're thinking?
Yeah, I don't know that there's just one type. It's kind of like saying who's your favorite kid.
Yeah.
But I think infrastructure is really big because I think that involves a lot of different areas or a lot of different issues as well. So I think infrastructure is really important. Maintaining what we have, so we're not having to buy new. Maintaining what we have to keep those costs down, and then so that we can expand and get new. Transportation is as well, and transportation, right now the TFT I think is providing, from what feedback I've heard from people, just friends and coworkers and whatnot, it seems to be working quite well and is very affordable. Again, it's a grant. So what do we do? So between now and the time that the grant's done, I think we need to look and see what we can do for that. Do we continue with that? Can we continue with it? Can we build on it, on there? Also transportation, as in Blue Lakes gets really backed up, and Eastland does. And so I think we need to be very cognizant of where the bridge goes, and our input on where that goes, and just finding different roadways to be able to use to maneuver through.
Cool.
Yep.
All right, I think I got everything that I need. I'm going to
Okay.
see if Grace and Stone's
All
got
right,
some time.
thank
Thank
you
you. Okay. I've been just going to ask people random questions. The first one I've been asking them about is, what's your thought on like the dog park? The dog park is getting a redesign right now. It gets really muddy out there. Basically, people go out there no matter what because their dog's got to get some exercise and so forth.
Right.
If that comes up to city council, like not elections, but like as the budget is like, hey, we need to go ahead and allocate some money to the dog park. Would you be for it or against it? Is kind of like what I'm.
Yeah. So I think the first question is just evaluate what we would need to get done and see what
Yeah.
the budget would allow.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not going to go up there and write a prescription on how I'm going to say.
Unlimited. Unlimited.
Not going to happen at all. We've got other priorities. I shouldn't say other priorities, but there's a lot of issues facing the city right now.
Mm-hmm.
We need to do a lot more expansion with our police and fire personnel. We've got some infrastructure requirements and then some transportation issues we could probably address. Not to say this wouldn't be a priority, but we would definitely need to look at it and figure out, how do we stretch our taxpayers' dollars the furthest? And so the first thing I would do is probably get a bid and then look what our budget is.
Yeah.
And then go from there.
Yeah, I think they're kind of getting to that. They're getting.
And that's the right step.
Yeah.
And that's the right step. And then see what other projects need to be completed.
Gotcha.
I mean, I wish that we could take a magical cloth and wipe all of our problems away, but unfortunately, in this economy, things are getting a little difficult. We got to make sure we're being fiscally conservative.
Yeah. What about, what's your thought about like the graffiti? There seems to be a lot of graffiti popping up on nature and parks and things like that. You think the city can do anything to combat that?
I think we are doing some stuff to combat that. I think we've got a lot of our social clubs that are wanting to jump on, and we just identify that as a need.
Mm-hmm.
I think in the city of Twin Falls, we've got a lot of great community partners that we could utilize in solving some of these issues that are primarily manpower-based and time-based. I mean, there's two ways to solve an issue, one with time and the other with money.
Yeah.
So if we've got more people with time than money, then we can, implement the time.
Gotcha. What about the city's transparency itself? How do you feel the city is? You think the city's transparent, showing everything what it's doing and so forth? Do you think we can make it easily accessible for people to access city's data and things like that? Or what do you
So in my opinion, and granted, I work with the city quite a bit in my professional capacity. I think the city's done a great job of being transparent. You can find all the records of the meetings online unless they go into executive session, and what those sessions are protected by or outlined in the bylaws for the city and the corporation documents. But all the information is technically available online via the Freedom of Information Act that you can file with the city. Could they do a better job? In my opinion, I would say they've been able to fulfill my needs and my requests. I have heard from people that they wish that there would be more transparency, and I haven't been able to meet with those people to identify, on what happened or what their experience was. So I would say in my personal experience, they've been very transparent.
Gotcha. What would you say would be a good thing to try to do to get more community involvement? So that way, more of the community is kind of feels like they got a voice on the decision that city council is making, I guess. Like, how would you try to get more people to come to city council meetings and things like that?
So I think that's a somewhat of a loaded question in the sense that the PR department for the city does a good job of posting their meetings, right? But it also is a desire for the public to want to participate in those meetings, and maybe we put on some programming on how to access that data. Because in my opinion, I feel like the city does a great job of posting what they're doing, posting their meetings, what time everything's going on. But maybe we're not doing a good enough job on how to access that information. So maybe that would probably be the best way forward on that. But I think the city's doing a great job with their programming. I just think maybe we need to educate people on how to find that data better.
Yeah, yeah. And what's your thought on people? Well, I'm sorry. I'm going to rephrase this question. What's your thought on like the transportation system itself? Because currently we have the ride share right now. That's a grant basically set for 3 years itself. What would you do with that itself? Would you try to expand it? Try to get buses?
Well, as it sits right now, and here's the problem with a fixed line bus system, and this has been talked about for years. If it's a fixed route and you're not on the route, then we're just going to see a bunch of empty buses rolling around, and that benefits nobody.
Yeah.
So we'd have to identify what routes are being utilized the most. I think this RFT program is going to provide us a lot of metadata that we can then analyze and see which areas are needing to be served the most and which destinations are being needed to
be serviced.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, that makes sense. And then what would you say your top 3 priorities would be if elected city council personnel?
I would say expand the budget for police and fire, reinvest in our infrastructure, keep maintaining our partnerships with private and public entities, and then remain advocates for a third bridge crossing.
Cool. I think that's all I need on that. I think I got it.
Awesome.
Cool. What's your thought on the dog park itself? Do you ever go to the dog park, or
I don't. I do
you don't
not.
have a dog?
I do not have a dog.
Oh, okay. Well, they're working on improving the dog park. It gets really muddy out there and so forth, and it can get really, really bad. And the people don't have too many places to take their dogs in Twin Falls,
Right.
so they got to take them to the dog park or like.
And there's probably only one.
There's only one. Yeah,
Okay, see, that's another growing issue. We need to have equal growth.
Yeah,
So the people on the east side of town don't have to go clear over to the
Yeah.
west side of town. There needs to be equal growth. Senior living communities, and I've touched on that in
Yeah.
there. So yeah, dog park, that's a good thing to bring up.
Yeah, so there's only one in town,
Yeah.
and then it's like all the way on one side of the town itself, and everybody. It's the only place you can have your dog off leash, pretty much.
Yeah, exactly. That's what a dog park is.
Yeah. So if that came up to like a city council budget meeting itself, would you be in favor in supporting the dog park, the growth, or so
Yes,
forth?
equal growth. Like I said, we need to grow it equally on all sides.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What about your thoughts on the city's transparency itself? Do you think the city could be more transparent?
I do.
What would you try to do to make it more
Well,
transparent?
for example, I mean, I've been going to meetings and interviews, whatever, all week this week.
Yeah.
And one of the people at one of the meetings I attended earlier this week said, why is it with the city council that an issue is brought before the city council of the public meeting every Monday at 5? The issues are brought up and one speaker about that issue. And then the city council votes on it right then and there. The public doesn't have a chance to rebut or anything on those issues. The public isn't given an opportunity until the following week, and that's after the city council has already voted on those issues.
Yeah, it doesn't make any sense.
No,
Yeah.
she brought that up to me, and I said, and I've been trying to attend the city council meetings so I can find out what's going on. And she pointed it out to me, and I said, that's a good point.
Yeah, so the
absolutely-
so it almost feels like the city's like the people's input doesn't even matter because
Yeah, exactly.
how could you try to make it so that the city has a chance to go ahead and put their input? What would you?
Exactly,
Yeah. So would you
exactly.
try to shift it towards that or something like that?
Yes, I want more transparency.
Okay, that's good.
I absolutely want more transparency with the city for the people, and that's why I said I've gone into retirement so people can come to me and address those issues.
Yeah.
So I can bring them up to the city council, and I'm not going to be I'm not going to be having another job that I have to get to. I want to be more transparent so people will know that they can come to me with issues,
Gotcha.
and I will do my very best to work on those issues.
What would you try to do about? There's a lot of graffiti in the parks. For example, like if you ever go to Rock Creek, people are tagging the rocks and so forth, and that's just basically being left and just basically left for the public to basically kind of see. What would you try to?
That's bad.
Yeah, what would you try to do to combat that?
The city parks, well, Rock Creek Park.
Yeah.
The Parks and Recreation need to need to take better care of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you just basically would just direct them a little bit more. It could be like, hey,
City-
step up, don't let
yeah.
this. Yeah, because it's interesting to me to see like this graffiti goes up. I don't know if you, I came in front of city council and asked them, hey, there's a lot of graffiti open here. It's just open.
Yeah, that's
and then
bad.
basically they said we're not going to do anything about it. We're just going to leave it as is.
Oh, that's not right.
And I was just like,
Because it should be, I mean, it's a public accessible park.
Yeah, and
it's a
there's
public park.
there's a lot of like genitalias on the rocks and things like that. So it's like people and families go down there and they're witnessing
and
this.
I want to keep it a safe place for kids so they're not susceptible to things like that.
Yeah,
That's horrible.
yeah, and we currently are doing that right now. We're just kind of leaving it as is.
Exactly, and
Which is
no,
a little bit
no.
crazy.
That's what I'm saying. That's my biggest issue. I want to keep it a safe place for families to raise their children.
What's your thought on the transportation itself? So we're currently are doing the ride share itself, but that's a 3-year grant, and then once that money gets out, then we have to figure out how to get $3 million, somehow suck it out of the city's budget or so forth. What would you do with the city's there's a lot of congestions on Blue Lakes in Washington. It's not as easy as to get around Twin Falls because there's a lot more traffic with all the influx of people. What would you try to do to combat the traffic that's in Twin Falls?
Well, there definitely needs to be, it was brought to my attention that the truckers on the intersection of Pole Line and Blue Lakes, that is a busy intersection. Well, the truckers don't have enough left turn lane to turn from the actual left turn lane, so they turn from the inner left turn lane, and so that's why there's been talk about eliminating the median right there at that intersection, so truckers can actually, or cars can get through the truckers to turn, if it's that sharp of an intersection where truckers can't get through. So there has been talk about that. There has been talk, my family's lived on Blue Lakes, the home that I now have, I was born and raised, and I was raised in that house, not born in it. But anyway, there's been talk for decades about widening Blue Lakes right there. And I know for a fact, since I lived there, there's a lot of traffic now there on Blue Lakes. What I would like to see, which would help, I would like to keep that a historic district now that it's not officially Highway 93 from Addison South. I would like to keep that a historical district, but what I would like to see is have a middle turn lane. Because if anybody turning from that section of Blue Lakes, making a left-hand turn, the traffic backs up for blocks behind them.
Yeah.
And so I would just like to have it widened just so there's a middle turn lane and make it easier for traffic in
That makes sense,
that regard.
What would you say would your top 3 priorities be if you got elected? Your top 3 priorities if you got elected?
Okay. Children, the safety for, making the community safe for children. And that includes, like you brought to my attention, the graffiti in the public parks. We need to maintain the public parks better. So that's the first priority. The second priority is we need to do something about the airport. Like I said, that's been an issue for decades.
Yeah, I don't know if that many people are utilizing the airport itself. So, and we're putting millions of dollars into the park in there itself. So it's kind of like so far out there too. So there's a lot of logistical things on that.
Yeah.
The airport is not profitable. Basically, it's just burning a pocket in the city's. So you would try to figure out something to make it more like profitable, or where it makes sense for people to go ahead and use it. They had these flights to Vegas or something like that for like $100. I was like, people love that because it would get them Vegas and back fairly quick or something like that.
So for years now, there's only been one airline in here, and I know they've tried different airlines. They tried Allegiant Air, and they tried a United. I don't know if it was a United, like SkyWest is for Delta subsidiary. Anyway, I can't remember if it was exactly United, but a United direct, linked flight from here to Denver.
Yeah.
a few years ago. Neither one of those, they stayed because nobody uses the airport.
Yeah. So what would you say, like, do you think the city's doing a good job on advertising, like the public meetings, what's going on, or do you think that could be improved?
I think that can be improved.
So you can think, how would you try to improve it?
Website, but for people who aren't on the website, I know a lot of people have told me that I need to get on public radio. Well, I personally don't listen to talk radio.
Yeah.
And so there needs to be more of an access, and I know Magic Valley News has just started not too long ago, just in the last few months or so, started publishing every community in the whole Magic Valley, what's going on in that community. It's available at over 200 retailers now, and each city can put their input on what's going on for that month. They're giving out once a month to retailers all around the area. So that's one good way, and they have actually grown quite a bit.
Yeah.
Just doing that free newspaper available in gas stations, grocery stores, wherever, over 200 places.
Yeah.
So that's a good way for people that aren't computer literate.
Gotcha. Just to try to educate people more.
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah.
Well, I think I got what I needed here. I'm going to do one more with Leah. Okay. All right. Well, this is almost kind of like doing the podcast, but like a really quick version of that itself. So I already kind of know a lot of things that you were already kind of going to say. So maybe we're just going to reiteration of some of these things. Last time I talked to you about like, hey, what's your thought about the dog park? And I think you were basically for it. You're like, let's try to improve it or whatnot. Do you still stand by that?
Yes, I served on Park and Rec around the time that Baxter Park was evolving, developing, I think donated, and we had lots of conversation, lots of great plans then about designing it not only to be a dog-friendly space, but for the people that will be there, so they have some, shade, shelter, access that's not muddy. And so I would love to see maybe another dog park, and if not, at least that one definitely improve, because it gets people out and about, and that's healthy for everyone. And I think that even when we have visitors and tourists in this area, it signals to them that we welcome you and your pets here in Twin Falls, and it's not like a muddy, ghetto-looking park. It's actually taken care of. We can't just have these projects be developed and then not maintained and taken care of.
Yeah.
What do you think, Isaac?
What do you think the city could do to try to get people more involved? Because a lot of times there's not a lot of public input on decisions that are basically made. It's kind of like the city council has already made up their decisions, like public comes second almost. What would you try to do to try to get public's input on big decisions?
Yeah. Families are, busy raising kiddos. I get that. People are busy. Around the time that city council meetings are happening, they're having dinner, they're preparing, doing homework. I think meeting people where they're at. Oh. Well, maybe.
You want to put it for a little bit?
Well, no, смотри, no. Give her something.
Give her like something to hold. There you go.
Families are busy around city council meeting times. They're getting their kids ready for school. They're having dinner. I think meeting people where they're at. So using technology, using social media, the component of transparency on a lot of the issues that come before the city council. Those, if they're communicated and public has the ability to engage, ask questions, really understand, not only the budgeting process, which is complex, but how money is allocated, where projects are being funded, how they're being completed. I think people definitely would get engaged more. Also, when it comes to elections, there's a way to notify the public before the elections are even happening, so that they're engaged. There's just so much technology out there. It doesn't have to be expensive. It just needs to be desired, right? To communicate and to keep the citizenry involved. and educated and informed. So using technology, meeting people where they're at, and being visible and present throughout community events. Like we just had Oktoberfest. That's a great opportunity to really educate the public and inform them on, we just completed the budget, this is what it looks like, here's what to expect in this next fiscal year. Is there any input that you'd like to bring in to any of these project areas while we're here at this event that we can take back and consider? I mean, that's a big way to engage with the public.
What's your thoughts on the historic preservation? Like keep the like what Russ was talking about.
I'm very much a supporter of property rights, and individuals and owners of property having the right to decide what they want to do with their property. If there is a choice for some of these historic homeowners, a choice for them to participate in some kind of preservation project, incentive for them to participate, then I can see something like that being, a path forward I would support.
Yeah.
But I do not believe in forcing property owners by government, forcing them to do anything that they don't want to do. They have the right.
And what do you think about the city's transparency itself? How do you think we can improve that itself? You talked about having kind of an oversight committee to just make sure, talk to me a little bit more about that.
A city this size and that it's exponentially growing still, and a budget that is that massive, we definitely need to have some kinds of checks and balances in place. I think having an ethics or a compliance committee, an oversight committee that's built into our organization in order to make sure that from budget to completion, the money is being spent wisely and that every single tax dollar is being treated, like it's sacred and being treated efficiently. That's not much to ask. I mean, there's all kinds of efficiency and transparency mechanisms that can be built into our city in order to make sure that taxpayers are prioritized, they're being responsible to, and that the money is being spent in an efficient way.
Good. And the last question here, what would you say your top 3 priorities would be, Leah, if you get elected?
My top 3 priorities would be really bringing in a fresh voice to the city council, which includes so many working families and so many underserved and hard to reach, marginalized families that aren't included typically in the stakeholder or shareholder conversations when it comes to City of Twin Falls. So my first priority would be really bringing in some of these voices that aren't included, right? And the second one I think is a big one on having some kind of a...
Okay.
The second one would be really looking into creating an ethics or a compliance committee in order to keep the city organization responsible, accountable, and transparent with the taxpayer money. And that way just make sure that we are running a very efficient and conflict of interest free operation at the city level. I think that's really important. The third one, I'm really passionate and I really feel our future investment is really our nature and taking, maybe?
Yeah, well, maybe just finish
Okay.
it and then that's good.
The third one for me would be our nature, really taking care of our nature, implementing a strong recycle program, looking into how to do that so that it is cost effective and also takes care of our future natural assets like our water, our canyon, and for our children.
Yes, all right. Perfect, I think I got it. All right, awesome.
And cut.
And cut.
She said, and cut.